Hello, how are you? It's lovely to see you. I have been waiting for you to share this story with you because it's one of my very favorite story. The name is Don't Tell Anyone and it's by Enid Blyton. And this story is about kindness, giving a helping hand, forgetting about yourself and saving other people. And that's what life is about. Don't you agree? Yes, let me show you George. So this is the boy and the name of the story is Don't Tell Anyone. So let's see what it has to tell us. George had a new suit and a new pair of boots. His mother had just bought the suit and it fitted George beautifully. It was dark blue and had a waistcoat like his father's. George was very proud of it. Tomorrow, she said, Auntie Winnie is coming to tea and you must be clean and tidy then. So after dinner, the next day, George put on his new suit. He tied his tie neatly, right, and brushed his hair till it shone. He put on his new boots and tied the laces tightly. My, he did look grand. Mother, could I have my watch to wear today for a treat? Let's see what the mum has to say. Well, this watch and chain was in silver and his Uncle Dick had given him last Christmas. It was such a nice one that George hardly ever wore it for fear of losing it. But he didn't think it would be fine. But he did think it would be fine to wear it with his grand new suit. Yes, you can wear it, said Mother. So George took it out of its leather case and slipped the watch into his pocket and slid the chain through a buttonhole to the pocket on the opposite side, right? In the olden days, they used to have watches wearing here and then going across the chest into and being hooked, not like the watches we wear these days. Okay, so now he really felt as grand as could be, just like when you dress up for a party or a wedding or a birthday. Can I go for a little walk? He asked his mother. I won't dirty myself. Very well, said Mother. Just go down to the sea and back. George lived by the sea and he never got tired of watching the big waves in winter time and the people that came to bathe and paddle in the summertime. He set off down the road and soon came to the front where many people walked up and down enjoying the hot sunshine. George walked along the front slowly. He hoped everyone was noticing how grand and fine he looked with his silver watch chain across the front. Dear me, it wasn't often he looked so grand. Usually he was a very dirty, untidy little boy, but just for once he was quite different. The tide was in and was splashing right against the wall. Some children were standing watching it, and with them was a small 3-year-old girl called Molly. As George passed, the little girl suddenly slipped down and fell splash into the sea. Oh, shrieked the other children. Molly's in the sea, Molly's in the sea. Oh, quick, Molly's in the sea. George ran to the place where the little girl had fallen in. There she was, struggling in the deep sea below. Oh my God, poor child. Oh dear, would nobody come? There seemed to be nobody grown up at all to come and save the little girl. George could swim. He was the best swimmer in his class at school. He forgot about his best clothes, and before anyone knew what he was doing, he had jumped straight into the sea, into the waves below. He felt close by the choking little girl and he got hold of her. He began to swim with her to the steps. It was difficult because she would cling to him so. You can see the little girl so shocked and petrified, and George making so much of an effort to save her and to drag her to the seaside. But at last he got her safely to the steps and dragged her up. The other children pulled her in, crying with fright. One of them saw how wet George was. "How will you get dry?" she said. "Don't tell anyone," said George, shaking himself like a dog and trying to squeeze the water out of his coat. "This is my new suit and my mother would be so upset to see it wet. Don't tell anyone, will you? I'll try it." By this time, a crowd had collected and the little girl was being dried and comforted. You can imagine how she was. George was able to slip away. A man tried to stop him, but George wriggled off. "Please don't tell anyone," he begged. Then off he ran home. He crept in at the back gate. No one was about. Mother must have gone to meet Auntie Winnie. Good. The little girl next door looked over the fence. Oh, how did you get wet like that? Won't your mother be cross? Oh, now please, don't tell anyone," said George. "I want to try and dry my clothes before my mother comes home." He slipped indoors quietly and ran up to his room. He took off all his wet things and squeezed the water out of them. And then he discovered something that made him stand still in horror. Oh, he had lost his lovely silver watch and chain. Were you able to guess? It must have fallen out of my pocket when I was swimming with that little girl to the steps, said George. Oh, what a dreadful thing. I was so proud of that watch. The little boy was very unhappy about his lost watch and chain, but he had no time to stop and grieve about it. He really must dry his clothes before his mother came home. He put on his dressing gown and hurried down to the kitchen. He put all his clothes through the dryer to begin with, and then he stood the clothes stand in front of the fire and spread out his clothes there. How long would it take them to dry? Oh, he did hope they would be ready in time. Mother had gone to meet Auntie Winnie at the railway station, and as it was such a lovely afternoon, they went down to the front for a walk by the sea. There they heard everyone talking about a brave boy who had jumped into the sea and saved a little girl from drowning. Yes, that's true. Okay. But nobody seemed to know who it was. The children who had been with the little girl knew who it was, but they said nothing because George had begged them not to tell anyone. Mother stayed with Auntie Winnie on the front by the sea until tea time. Good for George. Then they made their way home. And what was George doing? Well, his clothes were nearly dry and he had put them on. They looked very queer, most crumpled and untidy, and his boots wouldn't dry at all, so had to put on his old pair of shoes. He didn't look at all nice, but it was the best he could do. He hoped mother would notice. Do you think his mother would notice? Auntie Winnie was pleased to see him. Mother took one look at him and then she turned away. She was annoyed. She was vexed. And she thought, how could George get his nice new suit all untidy and crumpled like that? It was too bad of him. George saw how vexed she looked and he was unhappy. See, he's a good boy. He doesn't want to displease his mother. But mother didn't scold him in front of Auntie Winnie. Show Auntie Winnie your silver watch and chain while I make the tea, she said. Poor George, he went very red and didn't know what to say. I lost it this afternoon, I'm afraid. He's an honest child, he said to Aunt Winnie. Auntie Winnie wondered what was the matter with George. He looked so hot and untidy and unhappy. Perhaps he wasn't well. She began to talk about her walk along the front that afternoon just to distract him. And do you know, George, she said, everyone was talking about a brave boy who had jumped into the sea and saved a little girl from drowning this afternoon. Oh, said George, going redder than ever. Wasn't it brave of him, said Auntie Winnie. The little girl's mother does so want to know who that little boy was, so she could thank him. But no one seemed to know. He ran off without even giving his name. I wonder why. Oh, said George, going redder than ever. This was getting dreadful. Mother had been listening and watching George. She quickly went to him and felt his coat. It was damp. George, she said, was it you who jumped into the water after that little girl? The cat is out of the bag. Yes, mother, said George. But I quite forgot I had my new suit on when I did it. I just could not help it. And I've lost my watch and chain. I'm so unhappy about that also. But you see, there wasn't anyone else nearby who could swim. So I just had to jump in. I have tried to dry my clothes, but they won't dry properly. Oh, Georgie, said his mother lovingly. And to George's surprise, she suddenly hugged him as if she would choke him. What do you suppose? A new suit matters? Or even a watch and chain? So long as you are brave and kind, you have saved that little girl from drowning. And I don't mind about your suit a little bit. George was surprised and pleased. He was beaming. His mother made him change his damp suit and put on his jersey and shorts. He felt relieved and much more comfortable. Auntie Winnie was so nice to him too. He began to feel much happier. And to George's surprise, he soon found out that he was quite a hero. Are you surprised? Somebody said that it was he who had jumped in to save the little girl, and people told him he was a fine, brave and a kind little boy. Nobody scolded him for spoiling his new suit or for losing his watch, should they? And what do you suppose the little girl's mother gave George the very next day? She sent him a gold watch to wear with a strong leather strap so he would not lose it. He felt so proud. "You deserve it," George said his mother, and his father was very proud too. He said, "You do." "Well," said George, "I tried not to let anyone know because of my new suit. But it seems as if everyone knows my secret now. But I don't mind a bit because you're all being so nice to me." I have seen George's watch. It really is a fine one. I can tell you. I'll show you the picture. See how superb it is? And see, if you do a kind deed, it comes around. You should always be ready to share other people's troubles, help them in difficult times or when they are in danger. And what goes around comes around. Before I leave, I would like to remind you to keep washing your hands, to keep coronavirus away. 20 seconds each time you wash your hands. I know you're already doing it, and I wish you a healthy, long life. Ciao.